Hello, everybody. This is Sophia Mona Lisa of the Roseville Mystery School, and I am here with you today with my third and final part of my Galactic Evolutionary update. Now, I promised you this last part over the summer solstice weekend, and in fact, today is Monday, July 23rd, and that's okay. Things get uh, how do I want to put it? Things come together in perfect timing. And so I've really learned how to work with those timings and have really been practicing not getting myself caught up in, oh, I said it would be out this weekend and now it's Monday. So uh, it's a continuous practice. For somebody like me, it's always been a challenge. And if it's a challenge for you, I invite you to allow yourself to sink into that practice as well. And there's a really good cosmic reason why today is the day that this update is being put out. And we're still within the frequencies of the summer solstice. So it's all perfect. So this third part, of course, is about the evolutionary update on the Roseville Mystery School. And this mystery school is a mystery school that I developed. And I intentionally was choosing to align this evolutionary update with the summer solstice. I have a beautiful picture here of the summer solstice at Stonehenge, because the summer solstice is a time of honoring the light within ourselves. And that light, that which I call the sacred flame, the inner flame of our divine selves, is our mighty I am present. You will hear me call it the beloved I am present. So this is really a time of honoring, reconnecting with, re-engaging with our own spark of the divine light, which the sun represents for us. Now, you may be aware that 33 years ago, I was inspired to create the Golden Ray Center. It is an Aquarian age goddess temple. It was set up with the intention and still holds this intention today for all the work done through the Golden Ray Center to help restore humanity's culture of sovereignty and sacred relationship. And of course, you'll see here that the sun is very prominent within the image that I was inspired to choose as a kind of a logo for the Golden Ray Center. You will also notice that in the name, the Golden Ray Center, Golden Ray is capitalized. And I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. But to kick off this evolution of the Roseville Mystery School, I want to go back to the origins of the mystery school. So if you'll give me just a second, I'm going to go out here to my website, which the link is right here, goldenraycenter.com. Of course, I invite you to come out there with me. So let me just, maybe after the fact. So let me just pause for a moment to get out to my website. Hold on just a second. So here we are. You can see that this is the link to my website, the Golden Ray Center. I'm here on the welcome page. And if you scroll down, there's a little welcome video and a little bit of information here, which you can come back to. Where I want to take you right now is to this page, the Roseville Mystery School. And you'll notice that there are several pages under it, but let's land on the Roseville Mystery School page for right now, because that's what we're talking about, the evolution of the mystery school. Now, on this page, when you come to this page, the first thing that you're going to see is a little link to my YouTube channel for the Roseville Mystery School, and then a brief video. It's less than 10 minutes where I talk about how I was inspired to create this mystery school. And when I talk about this creation, which started in 2017, actually January of 2017, and really kind of came together a year later in 2018, I talk about what the name the Roseville means. And I talk about how a lot of the clarity around this seed that I received for the rose wheel was received, and how even that evolved and was that inspiration was clarified. The vision was brought to me, and it happened in terms of the vision clarifying around a Venus Sun conjunction, which very much, as you'll see, ties into the name, the rose wheel. At the time, this was 2 years before I made my journey to southern France, that Magdalene journey to the southern France. And so I wasn't familiar with the Venus synodic cycle. I didn't even know what a synodic cycle was, right? The dance of Venus with the sun. Of course, I didn't know about the Mars synodic cycle or the Mercury synodic cycle. This was all, I was really a newbie in this area. I didn't really learn about the Venus synodic cycle until I was in France, and we were dealing with an Inanna underworld experience. It was a unique experience because both Venus and Mars were together in the underworld, and that kind of an event only happens every 32 or 33 years. But what I know now, which I didn't know at the time that this clip is taken from, is that Venus Sun conjunction that gave me the whole clarity around what the rose wheel meant and what it was supposed to be was a conjunction in the Inanna underworld. It was the resurrection seed point in the Inanna underworld, and it was an Aries goddess journey. Now, if you're not familiar with the Venus synodic cycle, that's not going to mean anything to you. But for those of you who are familiar with the Venus synodic cycle, you're probably getting tingles. Your hair is probably standing up. And so I share this with you because even when we don't know what we're doing, or we even don't know that we don't know what we're doing, in terms of why our soul is here and what our soul is desiring to create and manifest, it's still happening. You can go back and you can see how it's still happening. So even from the birth of this mystery school, Venus and her synodic cycle were a crucial foundational piece for where this whole mystery school was going to evolve to. And of course, where it evolved to was teaching classes on the Venus synodic cycle. So if we come up here to the Roseville Mystery School, I'm going to drop past these mentorship programs. I'll come back to them later. Let's go to this Sacred Feminine, and you'll see that there's a Pisces Goddess classes and a Pisces Goddess journey. So let me just click on Pisces Goddess classes. I started out with the mystery school teaching classes about the Venus synodic cycle and all of the events that were happening through the Venus synodic cycle that was on the world stage at that time. So if you scroll down this screen, tells you a lot about the Pisces goddess journey, and it refers you back to this Sacred Feminine page, which I'm going to go to in a minute. And it tells you how I work very uniquely with the Venus synodic cycle. There are a lot of people out there that do work with the Venus synodic cycle, but there are some very unique ways in which I work with the Venus synodic cycle. Now, I want you to be aware that this page is still up because there's significant information on this page that I didn't want to reposition anywhere else. However, as you'll be aware by now from the first two parts of this update, I'm not doing the Sacred Feminine classes. That was brought to a halt very clearly by Sophia. So I have put this update here that the classes have been canceled for now. And of course, that also ties into the fact that through this Pisces goddess journey, we are detaching from roles, from identities, from beliefs. And for me, as a priestess slash teacher slash healer, those are roles and identities that I am disengaging from. So really at this point, all I'm desiring to do is to show up for each of you and hold sacred space for you for your own evolutionary journey, whatever that may be look like. And if the way in which I do that through my astrology work resonates with you, that's the tool I use. I would call it maybe a more evolutionary style of astrology. So I'm just really here in a mentorship position. So that's one of the huge ways that the Roseville Mystery School has evolved since it started, from really teaching, about the synodic cycles of Venus, Mars, and Mercury, and going more into a mentorship kind of a capacity for each of you. Okay, so let's come back over here. There's a hot link here, but also at the top of the page, as I mentioned, under Roseville Mystery School, there's that Sacred Feminine page. So let's click on that. Let's go there. The reason this is important is because if you're not familiar with the Venus synodic cycle, I go through on this page understanding the Venus synodic cycle. I give you all of the information here. I break down the different phases. There's 4 of them and what each one is all about. So this is very valuable information. And then again, I go into this new Venus synodic cycle that was initiated at the end of March this year about this Pisces Divine Mother Meta Goddess journey. And so again, very important information here about this specific synodic cycle. And so I encourage you to come out and look at this information to learn more about it. Now, if you're interested in what's going on with the activations within the Pisces Goddess journey, there is a hot link here, but also at the top of the page under Sacred Feminine classes. Hope I'm going slow enough so you don't get dizzy. There's that second page, the Pisces Goddess journey. And out here, you will see all of the activations related to this journey. We are in this first phase. You will see this is part of the newly evolved way of offering this information for you now that I'm no longer doing the Venus gatherings. In the Venus gatherings, we would look at each of the activations, what was going on in the sky, and I would offer readings for the tribe members and anyone who's interested, where we look at your specific solar return chart to see how you are specifically being evolved and expanded through these activations. This is really the crux of the work that I do for you. I am here in this mentorship capacity, in this holding space capacity, for you to be able to engage these cosmic events in a very personal, transformational way. And I use astrology specifically because your natal chart, the astrology chart that was created at your own personal place, time, and date of birth, is a multi-dimensional map to your soul. I know it looks like a two-dimensional image, right? That may mean nothing, may be Greek to you. That's okay. I see it as a multi-dimensional map. And by comparing what's going on in your personal soul map to what's transpiring on a cosmic level, I can give you insight into how you are being evolved. So what I've done on this page, and I've always had a page like this for each of the different Venus synodic cycles, the Gemini goddess cycle, the Capricorn goddess cycle, now, of course, the Pisces goddess cycle. I've put these hyperlinks in for each of the gates so that you can see what's going on at these gate activations. And if you are familiar with astrology in your own chart, you can look at your own chart and see how these activations are evolving you. If you're not familiar with this and you want to dive in and experience this, I'm here to support you and to facilitate that process. And as I said, provide that mentorship for you. Now, remember, today is June 23rd. I intended to share this at the summer solstice, which we're still, close enough to the window of. And why did I want to do that? Not only because we are honoring our own sacred flame, our own divine self at the summer solstice, but because the next Venus gate activation in this Pisces goddess journey happened this weekend. Now, here you'll see that I put June 21st to 22nd. That is because if you are on the eastern coast of the US like me, this actual specific time of the solstice, and the solstice for the summer solstice here in the northern hemisphere, that is the point in the sky when the sun reaches the threshold of the astrological sign Cancer. 0 degrees, 0 minutes of Cancer. Now, for us here on the East Coast of the United States, it happened in the very early hours of the 22nd. But if you're in an earlier time zone in the United States, even Central time zone, which is I think it's the next one over. I think it goes Central, Mountain, Pacific. I think that's how it goes. All of you had this attunement, this activation, this initiation on the 21st. Those of you in Europe, you would have had it on the 22nd, like us. In the Southern Hemisphere, they look at this as the winter solstice, whereas we're looking at it as the summer solstice. And I don't want to dive too much in that. I'm just kind of speaking to it and acknowledging it. Now, this gate activation happened at the throat chakra, which is the portal of communication. It happened at 16 degrees of Taurus. You can see all that information here. And if you click on this hyperlink, this is part of the evolving of what I'm offering through the mystery school. You can still see what is happening within this Pisces goddess journey, since I'm no longer offering these Venus gatherings and classes around it. So here you go. Here is the chart. There's a lot of information in this chart. You can see by looking at this chart and all of the information in here, this is a potent activation. And with any of the activations, like the first two gates, you can at any time engage those beyond when they happened, because time in terms of this 3D reality is not real. Everything is happening in the eternal now. So the moment you put your attention on a moment in the eternal now, which is a part of that quantum field, you are engaging at the soul level through the quantum within the eternal now with the frequencies that were kind of, what do I want to say? Not really consolidated, but coalesced from, in the quantum, we talk about waves. And the moment you put your attention, your awareness on a wave, the wave shifts into a point that manifests in this reality. And so you can focus on any of those points. You're in the eternal now. You are in that primordial cosmic soup of those frequencies. And it's just as potent and powerful whenever you choose to look at it as if you had done so in the linear timeline at that moment in time. You will see that here, this is where Betelgeuse came back onto into my consciousness, because Betelgeuse is the star frequency that is informing this throat chakra activation. This was a perfect unfolding of being able to look at the whole Osiris with Bennu prophecy, right? Prophecies are related to the throat chakra. Looking at Betelgeuse and Leona and that occultation and sharing that with you. So there's more information here on the whole Betelgeuse Leona archetypes, occultation. I also talk about here the whole victim archetype that I talked to you about in terms of the work that is helping us through this Pisces goddess journey to let go of those roles, identities, belief systems around the victim archetype. So I talk about all of that here. There's a lot of information here for you to look at. I will talk to you later in this presentation about, engaging with me if you're interested in seeing how this activation is evolving you and is breaking you free from that victim archetype as well. So there's a lot that we can do together regarding this. I just want to focus now on the new kinds of information that I am sharing with you, how I'm sharing it with you, where I'm sharing it with you as this Rosewell Mystery School is evolving. So, as I said, I started out teaching about the Venus synodic cycle, and you can learn about that on the Sacred Feminine page. And then we added teachings on the Sacred Masculine synodic cycle. And so I'm just going to come over to this page real quickly and show you that on this page, again, if you're not familiar with the Mars synodic cycle, I've got all of the information here that talks about the Mars synodic cycle and the different phases. And I've started to include information on this new Throne of Christ archetype and the events that are a part of this new Mars synodic cycle. Now, the timeline for the Venus synodic cycle and the Mars synodic cycle are not complete. I've only gotten so far because there's been a lot of work to do. However, I will continue to update this so that the information will be here. You can see that, as I mentioned, today is June 23rd. We are in the second phase of the 6 phases of the journey, the alchemical journey for this throne of Christ archetype. The next event is going to be on June 30th. So you can always come back here to see what's going on with Mars and Mercury. Excuse me, Mars and Venus. Okay. Because I am engaging my website as a way, in a new way, to bring all of this wisdom teaching to you, every time you come to my website, and I mean every time, I would encourage you to click on, and let me just get back to the top here. Hold on a second. Click on this little refresh button right here so that it will, and you'll see it says refresh. It'll refresh the page. The reason that's important is because if you've been to my site before, or if you come for the first time and then come again, what you will see because of the cookies is what was on that page the last time you visited it. So it's really important to hit this little refresh button. You see the little pop-up says refresh, so that the new information that has been uploaded to the page since your last visit will be present. Now, you only need to do that when you land on the page the first time, on my site the first time, because it will refresh all the pages. You don't have to do that as you move between pages. One of the things that I want to share with you that is a part of the evolving Rosewheel Mystery School is this new page here, Malastra and Spiritus Sanctuary. I did a whole video on this that's out there on my YouTube channel, but I want to bring it to you right now to show you what other information that you can find here. What you can find here is the underworld retreat schedule for Venus, Mars, and Mercury. Now, remember, in the past, we were doing in-person metamorphic retreats for Venus. Now that I have been told to stop the work in the way that I was doing it, there are no plans to do the full week in-person metamorphic retreat for the Pisces goddess when she does her whole transmutation to the Libra goddess. Okay. What I am offering in its place is a virtual retreat. These virtual retreats are one-on-one retreats. They will take place over a series of 3 days where you will be working one-on-one with me. And over the 3 days, it'll be, but the plan is 10 hours of personal one-on-one mentorship through that alchemical journey of the underworld. Now, that is still also evolving, and I will bring more information to you about that later. What I want you to see right now is that the next opportunity for an underworld experience is going to be in November with the Mars Underworld Retreat. That's when the Cancer god surrenders to the underworld. And you'll see here are the 3 days that are going to be the 3 days where we will engage virtually over Zoom to do this. Because I'm intending to spend 10 hours with an individual, that's a significant amount of energy for me to invest in not only the individual, but also all of the work that I have to prepare in advance for that individual that is unique to their alchemical journey. I'm only going to be doing this for 3 individuals. I thought maybe I could do 4 individuals. Honestly, I don't know that I personally at this point have the capacity to hold space for more than 3 individuals through these virtual retreats because of the intensity of the underworld and because of the vast amount of preparation that I have to make for each person. The next opportunity will be with the Mercury underworld, and that'll be coming very quickly on the heels of this one in November. You'll see here that in November, this is when Mercury is shifting out of its current fire element year and moving into its water element year. And here are all of the events related to the Mercury in its water element year. I'm emphasizing this to you now because I spoke to you in part 2 of the evolutionary update about the importance of the water element right now in terms of how the whole Galactic New Earth project and now also the Rosewell Mystery School is being evolved through the water element. And so because I can only hold space at this time for 3 individuals, what I would recommend is if you can only do, let's say, one of these events, I would encourage you to do the Mercury virtual retreat. 1, because they come more quickly. 2, because what we're doing through the Mercury underworld cycle is we are aligning spirit, mind, and body. This is an incredibly potent transformational journey. They all are, but the intensity of the Mercury synodic cycle, and I've done a whole video on what that alchemical journey through Mercury is. It's out there on my YouTube channel, is really intense. And so if you're wanting to do one of these underworld virtual retreats with me this year, you can send me an email and say, I'd like to get, on your list. I will hold a waiting list. So the first 3 people that contact me will be the ones I'm intending to work with and hold space for. And I will have a waiting list because if something happens with them and they need to change their commitment, then I will take whoever's next on the waiting list. So this is a whole new evolutionary change in the mystery school as well. I will come back to later talk to you about the Malastra and Spiritus Sanctuary and how that's going to be a container for supporting these virtual retreats again at another time. So I want to get back to how the Rosewell Mystery School is being evolved, because you can see already it's really changing. So we're changing from one-on-one, on these group gatherings with the Galactic New Earth tribe where they were being shared publicly for humanity, to a more from a teaching perspective to a more one-on-one mentorship capacity. So that's one of the big changes. Of course, the water element is a big part of this too, and offering those charts for the Venus synodic cycle through the website, another big change. Now, you may be asking, will you or are you going to offer the charts for the Mars synodic cycle and the Mercury synodic cycle? Right now, I do not foresee that happening. As a high initiate priestess, I do work with the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine in sacred union. So you may be wondering, why wouldn't I be including that work here? Couple of reasons. One, I've got a lot on my plate already, so I just don't have the time for it. Two, if you watch that little video that I showed you on the Roseville Mystery School page about the birth of a mystery school, you will see that the big focus here is through the Venus synodic cycle as an embodiment of the sacred feminine. Three, I do work with Sophia consciousness, which is the feminine energy of the Christ energy. Now, having said that, let me go back and clarify, because I've talked about this in other videos. When you are speaking of the Christ consciousness, you are speaking of the Sophia consciousness. They are two sides of the same coin. So if I hand you a coin, you take the coin. You don't ask me, did you give me the head of the coin or did you give me the tail of the coin? You receive the coin, you've got the head and the tail. It is the same with the Christ consciousness. There is the masculine consciousness that we call the Christ and the feminine consciousness that we call Sophia. So when you're speaking of Christ, you are speaking of Sophia Christ in sacred union. When you speak of Sophia, you are speaking of Sophia Christ in sacred union. And so because my emphasis as a soul being, as a soul that incarnated through the Virgo tribe, being in sacred service to the sacred feminine, that's where I tend to put my focus, and that's where I tend to use my language in terms of the sacred. So when I'm saying Sophia, please know I am talking about Sophia Christ. I am talking about the Sophia Christ consciousness in union. Okay. So it's all inclusive. It's not separated. It just, for language purposes, tends to be where I'm flowing my energy. Okay. The same with offering these charts for the different activations. Now, if you're really more connected with the sacred masculine and really want to dive into how the Mars energy as the sacred masculine is evolving you, I can support that for you. I can put together that information for you, even though it's not going to be public on my website. So I don't want you to think that it's not available at all. It's just not publicly, simply because of the scope of the work that would involve, that I don't have the capacity to contain right now, and because of my own soul's focus towards the sacred masculine, but it does not in any way omit or separate itself from the sacred masculine. Okay, just want you, hope I said that right. My focus on the sacred feminine does not omit or separate from the sacred masculine in any way. Okay, let me take you back to my slides. Hold on just a second here. Okay, this is the next piece of how the Roseville School, Mystery School, has been evolved. In the last synodic cycle, the Leo Divine Royalty Goddess cycle, this is when the Ascended Masters step forward and made it known to me that they were involved in the Galactic New Earth Project and that we would be working with them very, very closely through the Leo Goddess Divine Royalty Synodic Journey. I continue to work with the Ascended Masters, with their teachings. I continue to work with the Gnostic texts, such as the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Pistis Sophia. The reason being is that these ascended masters are souls that have come to this planet and they have resurrected themselves into their crystalline light bodies, into their rainbow light bodies as ascended beings. They have liberated themselves from the wheel of Maya. And that's what I, as a soul, am all about. I am about liberation. I am about the ascension. And this work with the the Leo Goddess Journey, where we activated the higher octave chakras in the crystalline light body, was a huge evolutionary shift in not only the Galactic New Earth Project and also with the Rose Wheel Mystery School. And it ties in with this Pisces goddess journey, this very intimate inner journey of coming into consciousness with your inner sacred flame, your inner divine spark. That's what the Roseville Mystery School has all been about. It's about realizing your own royal birthright, which is that you contain the spark of the divine within you, and then helping you to reconnect with your divine self. And a part of that, as is discussed by the Christ, the ascended Christ, the ascended master, Jesus, I call him Yeshua, to Mary Magdalene, teaches about the 7 egoic powers that keep you trapped in your egoic self, your personality self, that keeps you from attaining that liberation of aligning your egoic self with your divine self and allowing that divine self, your I am presence, to hold the reins. I mean, we see this story depicted in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is the charioteer for Arjuna and has got a hold of those reins for him. It's the same thing. My work is about ascension and supporting humanity in their liberation through the ascension process. And so I continue to work with the sacred rays, with the sacred flames, with the ascended masters, with the Gnostic texts, all of which are about this ascension process. Now, recently, I heard a video reading extracted from the Bridge to Freedom journals from the Masters of Wisdom, who have a YouTube channel, and I'll provide you that resource later, where Master Kutumi said, that which decreases the personality, and I've put egoic self, and let's take that a step further, the 7 egoic powers that Christ taught Mary Magdalene about, that which decreases the personality and increases the power of Christ, that is God. So what is it that we're achieving through this alignment between our human self, the personality, and the divine self, that which most people refer to God or God Goddess, I refer to as the I am presence. That is that Sophia Christ consciousness. It's a field of consciousness. It's an energy of consciousness. Okay. So anything that is increasing the power of Christ, that is coming from your inner I am presence, that divine spark, that sacred flame within you. In that same recording, Ascended Master Yeshua said, and this is in part, not the full quote, the Christ, right? Christ, Sophia, Sophia, Christ consciousness is God in action. Every time you use the words, I am, you are invoking your inner divine self, and it is becoming in action within you. The Christ is God in action. This is huge because a lot of people don't understand what Sophia Christ consciousness is. That because there's been so much brainwashing about the fact that Master Yeshua, who came onto the planet, is the Christ. No one else is the Christ. He is actually a Christed being. He said, these things that I do, you too will do, and even greater, because he knows that all of us in her humanity are a part of the Christ race. Okay. So I'm not in any way dissing Master Jesus. Okay. He is not the Christ. He is a Christed being that is fully aligned with the Sophia Christ consciousness as an ascended master, as is Mary Magdalene, as is ascended Master Katumi, as will be each of us through our own ascension process. And he clarifies the Christ is God in action, which is not the individual's outer consciousness. That outer consciousness that is created by the personality, by the egoic self, that keeps us trapped in those egoic powers, that keeps us from realizing and aligning with our own inner divinity. But he tells us, Master Yeshua, that Christ being God in action within you, that's your divine spark in action within you. Every time you say, I am, that is the expression of Christ within the world of men. And that expression of Christ, or Sophia Christ consciousness, is the Holy Spirit. Again, a huge clarification, because people hear about the Holy Spirit, they hear about the descent of the Holy Spirit, but they don't really have a way to like tangibly connect with, well, what does the Holy Spirit mean? It is the expression of God in action within you, which is that Sophia Christ consciousness. That expression is the Holy Spirit. This is why my work with the Venus synodic cycle, the Mars synodic cycle, the Mercury synodic cycle, in terms of how that inner divine spark and your relationship with it from the human self to the divine self is being evolved, liberating you from those egoic powers so that you can ascend into that liberating space of Sophia Christ conscious and be the embodiment of it, to allow that manifestation of Christ in action within you to show up in this reality as the Holy Spirit is a huge part of how this Rose Wheel Mystery School has been evolved. Going away from teaching to holding the space for you as a mentor to help you navigate your own personal evolution, your own personal ascension, your own personal liberation from the egoic powers. Okay. As I mentioned, the sacred flames and their rays are a big part of this. We were working with this chart as we were activating our higher octave chakras through the Leo goddess journey. Let me explain to you, going back to the name of the golden ray in all caps center. that was given to me 33 years ago. Okay. 33, that number of the Christ consciousness, the Sophia Christ consciousness. The second ray, it says yellow here, but it's also referred to as gold. The second ray and its flame of illumination and wisdom is gold. The golden ray was a signal from my soul to me when I didn't even know about the ascended masters, when I didn't even know about the sacred flames and the rays, that I am as a soul working on the second ray, working through the second ray, the golden ray, to bring in the wisdom related to the illumination, right? The ascension process, the liberation process. This is what my soul work is all about. Each of you too are working through one of these rays and working with one of these sacred flames and working with the ascended master related to these flames. I cannot tell you which of the rays you are working with. Only you, through your own inner work, can receive the clarity from your own inner divine spark, which ray, and some people work on more than one ray, you are here working on. Likewise, each of us has a soul. Our soul was created from one of these rays. Again, I'm not here to tell you which ray your soul was created from. As you do this work with your inner divine spark, with your inner Sophia Christ, you will come to receive the clarity, the wisdom of knowing, right? Gnosis. Sophia is gnosis, which ray your soul has been created from. I happen to know that my soul was created from this third ray, which is the ray of the rose pink flame of cosmic love. Now, I wasn't aware of that when I started creating the Rose Wheel Mystery School, and everything about my Rose Wheel Mystery School, including the color scheme for my slides and my logo and everything related to the Rose Wheel Mystery School, was rose pink. So again, I'm telling you, whether you are aware, consciously aware or not, your soul is here to do a great work. And it is going to do that work regardless of how your egoic self, your personality, how you get trapped in these egoic powers. However that happens, your soul is doing your work. The question I have for you is, are you ready to step into a conscious, equal partnership from your human self to your divine self? And if you are, that's where I can hold space for you. That's where I can support you in learning how you, as a unique soul being, is evolving yourself and is being evolved through these cosmic events, not only through the personal transformation of the Venus, Mercury, and Mars synodic cycles, but also the big cosmic events that influence the collective consciousness of humanity. And we're going to kind of shift gears and talk about one of those big cosmic events that has happened this month, June, that is also evolving this work with the Rose Wheel Mystery School and very much evolving you. So I mentioned in the last two, or I think the second part, that this whole transformation or transition into the water element is a huge foundational piece of the evolution that the Galactic New Earth Project and now the Rose Wheel Mystery School, as a result of that, is undergoing. Let me explain to you. Oh, and I also shared how Mars, Venus, and Mercury all being in the water element simultaneously hasn't happened for, I think it was, did I say 79 years related to that 12th Mercury return of wholeness, completion. Okay. Well, prior to Mars and Venus going into water, and Mercury will go into the water in November. So from then forward, all three of them will be in the water element. They were all three, remember, they're personal planets. They transform each of us on a personal level. They were all working with the fire element. So just kind of, again, give you a scope of context for all of this. As an alchemical creation, high priestess, I was trained in and I work with alchemy. Alchemists work with the elements. Every step of the alchemical process is aligned with an element. And if you have watched any of the work that we did through the Leo Goddess journey, you will be aware of that. Okay, so before this whole water element came onto the world stage, so to speak, Venus, Mars, and Mercury were having journeys through the fire element. Now, it's important to understand, what does the fire element do in an umbrella sense? Okay, there are very, very specific things that it does, but in an overarching reach, the fire element, first and foremost, is all about purification, purifying. That goes to the second step of alchemy, purification through fire. Okay. Venus had her whole fire journey through Leo from August 23 to this year, March 25. Prior to that, Mars had a whole fire elemental journey through Aries from October of 2020 through December of 2022. Notice that when Mars completed his fire journey in 2022, Venus then started her fire journey in 2023. Okay. Mercury went into its fire elemental year while Venus was in her fire journey in April of 2024. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, we'll be completing this fire elemental journey in November of this year and going into that water element. Okay, so yes, Mercury was in the fire element at the same time as Venus. But the unique thing that I said about what's happening with the water element is that all three of these very personal planets will be in water, in the water element at the same time from November this year. Okay. Now, what is the other thing that fire does besides purify? It awakens. And what it's doing, which again ties back to this whole summer solstice event, is it awakens your divine flame, the inner sacred flame that you carry. And it's not doing it for just me, and it's not doing it for just you. It's doing it for every human being alive, whether they are aware of it or not. This whole journey through the fire element from 2020 through this year. Okay, so we're talking October 2020 through November 2025, 5 good years where this fire element has been purifying humanity to the point to where they can have an experience through that purification process of awakening that inner divine flame, awakening to the presence of the divine flame that has always been there, that they just simply weren't aware of. This is huge in terms of setting the stage for this water element. All right. Now, I mentioned to you that the water element that the three planets, Venus, Mars, and Mercury, will be in the water element as of November this year. This month, June 9th, the day after I released the first evolutionary update video to you, Jupiter made a huge shift. He shifted out of the sign of Gemini into the sign of Cancer. He did that prior to, as you'll be aware, of the solstice, right? June 9th, prior to June 21st, prior to the Cancer season starting with the summer solstice. He moved into Cancer. He moved into the water element. This is huge. Jupiter is the largest luminary body in our solar system. Its impact, its influence on everything that it comes into connection with in our solar system within us is exponential. Exponential. It magnifies, it increases everything on an exponential level. Now, I've already talked to you about Mars being in that Cancer goddess synodic cycle that really kicked off in January. What I received when Jupiter moved into the water element of Cancer, right? The sign of the current masculine, sacred masculine synodic cycle, that throne of Christ archetype, which is all about the resurrection technology, the ascension technology within as well as on the planet, that this was a huge shift for the archetype of Mars, the throne of Christ archetype. So let me just quickly show you the chart for this event. I'm not going to go into like the major details of this event, but there are things that I want you to be aware of in terms of this huge shift. I mean, monumental shift in energy. First of all, Jupiter stays in an astrological sign for a year. So Jupiter moving into a new sign, or any of the outer planets moving into a new sign, it's a paradigm shift. So Jupiter will now be in Cancer for the next year. But look at what was going on in the sky. Jupiter right here at 00 Cancer was conjunct in a stellium, right? A stellium is 3 or more luminary bodies with our star Betelgeuse. Remember, I told you how Betelgeuse came rushing back into my consciousness, most specifically because of that portal of communication activation that was going to be happening this solstice weekend at the third gate for the Venus synodic cycle. Also, the Magdalene. Remember, in my work, the Magdalene represents your inner Sophia consciousness, the feminine aspect of Sophia Christ consciousness. and also Mercury, the cosmic messenger. So this is a huge broadcast that is like not on a megaphone, because Jupiter is involved. I'm trying to even think like what kind of a broadcasting. I'm hearing Sirius, because Sirius is named after a star, and the star Sirius is in Cancer. They give this stuff to me. So like on the level of Sirius, where you can tap down and get this knowledge happening, and you will notice it is at the apex, the top of a yod. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what a yod is, it is a moment in the eternal now. It is a divine appointment. It is the will of God / goddess. We know the will of God, Ray, is the first ray under Master El Morya. That's what a yod is. It's like, this is happening. No one, no thing can stop it, because it's the will of God. And who's at the base of this apex? We've got the moon in Sagittarius. Now, let's briefly talk about the archetype of the moon in Sagittarius. That is the teacher of truth and expanded states of consciousness. Notice she's in the first house, meaning you will come to know yourself as an embodiment of these truths, these expanded states of consciousness. And then Pluto retrograde, pulling us inward. Retrograde always pulls us to our inner reality. And in the sign of Aquarius, the sign of that Sophia Christ consciousness, which is the realm of the ascended masters, in the third house, ruled by Mercury, broadcasting at the highest possible frequency, right? From the Sirius system, this Gnostic wisdom that is the truth of who you are coming through. Okay. And of course, Betelgeuse, enabling you to receive that, because Betelgeuse, since the occultation with Leona that I talked about in the previous update, right? He is helping you at this mastery point of 29 degrees to let go of any roles, identities, beliefs, attachments to that victim triangle that I spoke to you about, that is a part of that victim archetype, that fear-based field of consciousness. It's just like blowing it out of the sky. So the fact that Jupiter entered Cancer this month, already a big shift. The fact that he's a part of this incredibly powerful stellium at the apex of this yod is mind-blowing, right? Because what happens is that the energies of the moon and Pluto, they blend their energies together, and then they use them as rocket fuel to burst you up to this apex point so that you can have this breakthrough in consciousness, this evolutionary breakthrough that is a part of the divine will. Notice that the apex is in the 8th house. The 8th house is all about your personal empowerment, liberating you from that victim archetype, fear-based field of consciousness that I talked about in part 2, that I talk about on the page that I showed you, where I give you the chart for the gate activation of the throat chakra. So this is huge. Now, several big things are happening this month, and what I'm going to show you here is just the beginning of it. We've already had Saturnia and Neptune shift from Pisces to Aries. Again, big paradigm shifts. I've talked about Saturnia in Aries and Neptune in Aries. I just will give you a brief overview here from my perspective in terms of an evolutionary and liberating point of view. Saturnia as a goddess of sovereignty, as a mastery goddess, right? That's what the whole ascension process is about, self-mastery. In Aries is enabling you to manifest and to know yourself as an embodiment of love. Okay, that divine spark, that inner flame that is pure love. Knowing yourself as a master, like Master Yeshua, Master Kutumi, right? As that embodiment of pure love. Neptune in Aries is enabling you to know yourself as an embodiment of the I am presence, that divine self. So the fact that the two of them are in this Aries energy simultaneously working together for you to know yourself as a divine being, to know yourself as an embodiment of divine love, to experience yourself beyond the knowing, to experience that self. That's where the wisdom comes in, right? The gnosis, the knowing is one thing. Having the experience of it is another thing. And so already this month, we have experienced Jupiter squaring Saturnia. Remember, squares are breakthroughs in consciousness. We have experienced Jupiter squaring Neptune, breakthroughs in consciousness. So what does Jupiter do? It magnifies, it takes it to a whole new exponential level of knowing yourself as a divine being, as an embodiment of the I am presence, magnifying and knowing yourself as that embodiment of pure love, as a master, a divine master. I mean, this is huge. And when this happened, I received a whole download of wisdom, right, around this Cancer archetype of the throne of Christ synodic journey, right? That resurrection technology, just like I talked about Christ and Sophia being two sides of the same coin. On the other side of the coin from the throne of Christ technology, the ascension technology within, is the awakened masculine. This is huge. I'm going to go a little bit more into this in just a minute. And what brought forth this awakened masculine archetype as Jupiter was going into Cancer? Look here. Here's Mars. Mars, that's the synodic cycle, right? That's the archetype. He is in Leo, the sign of the Christ heart, fire. Look at the galactic center in Sagittarius, that truth, those expanded states of consciousness, fire. Chiron, the cosmic shaman in Aries, fire. We have a grand fire trine. And the purpose of a grand trine is to create a whole new evolutionary platform from which to move forward. So with the sacred masculine, that archetype engaged this awakened masculine archetype. Remember what I said about fire? It purifies and then it awakens. I didn't put the lines on here for the grand fire trine just because I thought it would be too much to see. But the fact that this grand fire trine happened simultaneously with Jupiter going into Cancer, right? This is the synodic cycle for Mars, and being at the apex of this yod. This is mind-blowing. Now, remember, I also look at the star frequencies involved in the events. So if you do work with me, not only will I be looking at the star frequencies involved in the events we're working at, I include your personal star frequency, the star that was influencing you at the time of your birth. For me, it's the star Vega. Okay, the star informing this event where all of this grand fire trine and apex, yod and Jupiter being at the apex happened is Capella. Look at what Capella frequencies are all about. It gives significant assistance to the physicalization of spiritual understanding. Okay, you could say manifestation of spiritual understanding. That's what this Jupiter square Saturnia was all about, having this great manifestation of this spiritual knowledge. This is what the moon here in Sagittarius is all about as well, as a way of bringing that spiritual truth into form that is practical. Saturnia, the goddess of Capricorn, talk about being practical, right? And can be applied well in the world. Aries is all about inspired action. How are we going to apply this in the world in a responsible Capricorn 10th house way? All right. It enhances the formation of creative ideas that can be transmitted and communicated. And we've got Mercury right here between people as love, deeper compassion, and understanding. These are all qualities of Cancer, Mars in Cancer, and even Venus in Cancer. These deeper, also the Pisces energies, love, deeper compassion. It is also helpful in strengthening family connection and family ties. And I have put in parentheses here, we're talking on the global level, the human family. Why the global level? You've got Aquarius here, Pluto and Aquarius. This is a huge evolutionary shift in the collective consciousness of humanity that Capella is lending its frequencies to. And so what this is doing, it is allowing these water element frequencies to heal humanity from the old patriarchal energy so that they can receive the new sacred masculine frequencies through the awakened masculine archetype of this Mars synodic cycle. And here we have these images that I've shared with you before. The throne of Christ archetype, which is the synodic cycle for Mars that I was given with first. We know it's an inner ascension technology, an inner resurrection technology. And what has been birthed? The awakened masculine archetype. This is huge. These two archetypes now that we will be engaging through the Mars Cancer synodic cycle as two sides of the same coin has come forth from Jupiter coming into that water element and everything that I showed you. Now I have updated that page that I showed you on my website about the sacred masculine, where I talked about the throne of Christ archetype. I have added information there about the awakened masculine archetype. And I write in part, the throne of Christ resurrection / ascension technology leads us to the awakened masculine within. That's what this threefold flame, that is a depiction of your sacred flame, your inner divine flame that the ascended masters speak to, is all about. The awakened masculine is a return. It is a return, I should say here, from the patriarchal energy of the perverted and profane masculine to the sacred masculine. The awakened masculine leads from the Christ heart, not from patriarchal wounding. The awakened masculine has the courage to feel. Think about all the men who have been so shut down from their inner feminine because they were made fun of and called crybabies when they would feel what was going on within them. So they have the courage to feel without fear, because the awakened masculine is anchored in divine love. This is where the awakened masculine is anchored, within your inner divine flame, as a part of that Sophia Christ consciousness. This is huge. Now, this is another big thing I want you to be aware of in terms of Jupiter's move into the water element. You'll remember in, I think it was part 2, I talked about the message that Thoth provided to Jeanette Bureau about these resurrection technologies, these ascension technologies being found on the planet. The announcement of the one that was found under the Giza Plateau under the Great Pyramid was made in March. Thoth said to expect this to continue to happen over the next 3 years. What do these resurrection technologies rely on within and without? Water. And so over this next year that Jupiter is in the water element of Cancer, you can expect a huge flux of discoveries around this ascension technology. From this year, after Jupiter goes through Cancer, the water element, it's going to go into Leo, a fire element. Fire purifies and awakens, right? But remember, Leo is about the Christ heart, and you've got to be reconnected, re-engaged with your Christ heart. And from there, with your divine flame that is in the holy of holies of your Christ heart, in order to achieve this ascension process. And so again, more resurrection technology coming. Again, we see Jupiter enhancing, amplifying exponentially these discoveries. So that's a huge piece. This is another piece that I want to bring forward, because remember I said that this is happening on the world stage with Jupiter, affecting the collective consciousness of humanity. And one of my Galactic New Earth tribe members, Sophia Regina, if you've watched any of my Venus videos, you'll have seen her in there. If you watched any of my Divine Feminine Leadership videos, you will have seen her in there as well, told me about this prayer that she had come across and how she is using it. And I am going to share it with you here and now. And I invite you to start using this prayer on a daily basis as well. And the name of this prayer is a decree for Earth and her nations, right? That's every nation on Earth, which encompasses every person on earth. In the full power and authority of my God presence, I am. I humbly come to the throne of grace to invoke into the physical plane of earth the most intensified dispensation and activity of God's will ever manifested in the history of time. We ask the legions of light serving this planet to absorb this divine essence into every fiber of their beings and project it into the heart, flame, and conscious mind of every man, woman, and child on this plane, especially every person associated with all governments of our planet in any way, shape, or form. Blaze the cosmic flame of God's will through each soul evolving here and clear away all destructive activities that might be directed against any of God's children and the light for which we stand. Seal all government positions in the radiance of God's love. Let the illumination flame reveal the divine purpose and plan for each office and individual and give to each person the spiritual courage to fulfill that plan perfectly. Let the will of God be manifest in, through, and around all the governments of the world now and forever. Let the eternal, victorious light of God illumine and lead the way for the soul, for every soul evolving everywhere on the planet. We consciously accept this manifest now in full power according to God's holy will and purposes. And so it is, beloved, I am. This prayer is so potent and is fully aligned with the yod of Jupiter moving into the throne of Christ energies of Cancer, the awakened masculine archetype. This is huge. You will hear that it's calling on God's will. The first ray, which is the blue flame, which is what I've put here parenthetically, is the ray, is the flame of Master Almoria, whom you see here. Isn't it interesting that this prayer calls upon the illumination flame, which is the golden flame, the second ray, to help reveal this divine purpose and plan, which is absolutely aligned with who I am as a soul being and the work that I am doing here through the Rose Will Mystery School. So you can see that the Rose Will Mystery School is really even evolving from a one-on-one teaching to mentorship to planetary guide for humanity. This is huge. And because this decree for Earth and her nations is calling on the governments of our planet to be associated with this prayer for the cosmic flame of every soul working in government to be illuminated in this way, and to have the courage, right? That courage to act from the Christ heart, from the love of the Christ heart, and not from the fear of patriarchy. This very much ties into how this yod for the planet and the world's leaders are being impacted. And so I just want to share with you what that kind of looks like. So here we have some of the world leaders who have been demonized. I'm not going to get into any political rhetoric here, so please do not leave any nasty political statements on my channel. But I want to look at how the world leaders are being evolved through this shift of Jupiter into Cancer, through this birth of the awakened masculine archetype, and how it aligns with this decree for Earth and her nations. What we see is when Jupiter moved into Cancer on June 9th, very quickly, 3 of our world leaders had new solar returns, meaning very quickly they were stepping onto a brand new evolutionary path where Jupiter in Cancer is going to be a huge influence for them over this brand new evolutionary path that they're engaging for the next year. So we have President Donald Trump from the USA, who had his birthday, i.e. solar return, on June 14th. The very next day was President Jinping Xi from the People's Republic of China. And then on the solstice, we have the President of India. You see her here, Draupadi Murmu. Now, I could not cast a chart for President Jinping Xi to find out where in his solar return chart Jupiter will be and what its influence will be, is because all the information on him that I found does not know his time of birth, and I need to know a time of birth for that. But just know, along with President Donald Trump and President Draupadi Murmu, he is immediately being influenced by that yod and by that awakened masculine archetype, and really, I would say, embodying the frequencies of that decree of Earth and her nations. Now, what's interesting about President Trump is that I see in his solar return chart that Jupiter in Cancer in his solar return chart is a part of a stellium. Remember, that's 3 or more luminary bodies. Betelgeuse, of course, Jupiter, and the Magdalene. That's inner Sophia consciousness. That's happening in his 10th house. The 10th house is the work that you will be known for. And interestingly enough, the placement of those in his solar 10th house are activating his natal Osiris in his 11th house. Osiris represents the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness above. Yeshua represents the Christ consciousness within. The 11th house has to do with the collective consciousness of humanity and liberating humanity. So it will be very fascinating to see how President Trump works with the world leaders over the next year to bring about, through this awakened masculine archetype, the liberation of humanity and nations becoming sovereign unto themselves once more. Okay. President Draupadi Murmu, right here. The fact that hers aligns with the solstice and is in the 1st house means that she is going to be a huge power player on the world stage over the course of the next year. Now, I do have the Prime Minister, who is right here, of India as well. I know, because we're used to dealing with the Prime Minister of, let's say, England, that most people would think about the Prime Minister as the primary leader. I don't know what the structure is in India in terms of the relationship between the President of India and the Prime Minister of India, which is why I included them both. It'll be interesting to even see how that relationship evolves over the next year. Remember, that first house is knowing yourself as an embodiment of. And look at this. She has got this Jupiter, right, in her solar first house. And he is with this huge stellium of her sun, the star Betelgeuse, of course, the Magdalene, the inner Sophia, and Epona retrograde. Again, pulling her in. Those Epona in Cancer energies are all about inner wisdom, inner initiation. And I've done a video on those energies that you can find on my YouTube channel. Those 5 luminary bodies conjuncting her solar ascendant. This is huge, not to mention that the sun, Betelgeuse, Mercury, and Thecla are conjunct in her natal chart and are being activated by this huge stellium in the third house of being able to communicate, right? We just had that activation of the portal of communication, which happened on or after the day of her solar return. Watch and listen for what this incredibly powerful woman, Thecla, sovereign woman, the woman who doesn't need a man to baptize her, who can baptize herself in the name of the Christ, because she is the Christ, as are all of us. We carry that Sophia Christ consciousness within us. And so look to see how her voice through the Holy Spirit starts to anoint the world leaders over the course of this next year. I've got chills running through me. Now, in September, the Prime Minister will be having his solar return. Jupiter in his solar house is in the 7th house of relationships. I'm telling you, this relationship between the seat of the president and the seat of the prime minister is going to be completely evolved through this archetype of the awakened masculine. Remember that we all carry that awakened masculine within us, just as we all carry the sacred feminine within us. And what's interesting is in his solar house, Jupiter is conjunct the moon. The moon in Cancer, that's where my moon is. The moon in Cancer is an ancient lineage of the Great Mother. This is the lineage of the dragon bloodline. And I'm not going to go into that right now. You can research the dragon bloodline. But the fact that the Jupiter and moon in the 7th house of his solar chart are activating his natal Yeshua, his inner Christ consciousness, as they stand across the sky from him. It's in his 2nd house of his natal chart. He has his inner Christ consciousness as a huge pool of resource for him. Remember that inner Yeshua is in Capricorn. And so the mastery, the wisdom, the word I'm looking for, hold on, I'll find it. Oh my Lord, I can't believe my mind's gone blank. What is the word I'm looking for those Capricorn energies? Way shower. So we've got the cosmic Christ engaged through President Trump. We've got the inner Christ engaged through the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. We've got Thekla. I mean, this is phenomenal. And now I bring you up to President Vladimir Putin from Russia. He will be having his solar return in October. And when that happens, Jupiter will be in his 12th solar house. That 12th house ruled by Pisces, where we are having our Venus synodic cycle now. That Pisces energy of the I am presence, that Pisces energy of your inner divine spark, that Pisces energy of wholeness, completion, unity consciousness, no more separation consciousness. And it is also squaring his solar Chiron, the cosmic shaman, in retrograde. This is going on within him in his 9th house, that 9th house of spiritual truths, spiritual understandings, having these breakthroughs in consciousness around the kind of healing that can come to and for a nation that may even be considered a nation that embodies the wounded healer itself. This is going to be huge. So please do not get trapped in your attachments to the identities, the personalities of these world leaders. They are divine souls, just as you are and as I am, and they are being evolved and on the world stage to help humanity's evolution for a reason. And this shift into Jupiter at the apex of this yod with the awakened masculine archetype coming forward through that grand fire trine is going to be huge for humanity. Now, I talked about after Jupiter going into Cancer, how it had that square with Saturnia in Aries and Neptune in Aries. That happened like around the middle of the month, right? The 15th and the 18th, I think. Now look at what is happening today, tomorrow, and the next day, which is why this video is coming out today. We're in Cancer season. This is what happened at that summer solstice when the sun stepped onto that threshold of Cancer, the 0 degrees, 0 minute point of Cancer. So now the sun is going to be coming into a square with Saturnia today. Today. What does the sun do? It fuels everything. So now we had Jupiter making its square, right? Its breakthrough in consciousness for you to know yourself as an embodiment of that inner flame, that pure love, and to know yourself as a master, divine master. And now the sun is fueling that. It's like a rebirth of a rebirth. We have the solstice that honors it. And now your whole relationship with your inner sun, with our solar system, with the heart of the galactic system, our galactic, through the galactic center, with the Atun, the great central sun, the heart of the divine, breakthroughs in consciousness being fueled by this energy to illuminate you in your feeling body, to feel the presence, to feel the quickening of your divine presence happening today. And then tomorrow, the sun will square Neptune, right? Another huge breakthrough in consciousness, you will then know, because you will have felt that quickening of that divine love within you. You will know yourself as an embodiment of the divine, and that will be fueled, and you will be illumined through that realization of that relationship with who you really are. And then, I'm sorry, let me back up. The Sun square Saturnia happened yesterday. The Sun square Neptune is happening today. I forgot today's Monday, the 23rd. Tomorrow, Sun and Jupiter are coming together in Cancer. Talk about an explosion of light, because what does Jupiter do? It magnifies exponentially everything. So that light within you that you have felt, that you have come to know the truth of, is being magnified by Jupiter, the cosmic guru, so that you can feel that you and the divine are one. This is what Yeshua said. I and my Father are one. Get ready for this explosion of light within you tomorrow. I mean, this is what the Rosewheel Mystery School is all about. Inspiring you to come into conscious, equal partnership, into relationship with your inner divine flame, and engaging with it in a conscious way to continue your ascension journey, that evolutionary journey that will liberate you from the egoic powers, so that you will know and be and walk as that pure Sophia Christ consciousness, that oneness. So, if you would like to work with me, a part of the evolutionary process of the Rosewheel Mystery School is my offerings to you. In the past, I had offered one reading. It was a 60-minute reading. It had a set price. Sometimes I offered discounts, but I've changed that. And let me tell you why I've changed that. I myself work with mentors. And what I discovered, which was really a mind scratcher for me, is I would book, let's say, a 1-hour reading. And the first time it happened, I wasn't aware of this policy, so to speak. The 1-hour reading went into a 1.5-hour reading. And I was told, well, I know you had a 1-hour reading, you paid for a 1-hour reading, but now that we're in an hour and a half, you can send me the difference via PayPal. And I have to say that it took me by surprise, and it didn't land very well. It didn't resonate with me. Anybody that's had readings with me that have been 1-hour readings, they would frequently go into an hour and a half. I would never charge extra. They paid what they paid, and that was it. Because I feel like once we come together, whatever needs to come through to you needs to come through. It's my obligation and responsibility to share that with you. Even like free 20-minute videos that or meetings with people, sometimes have gone into 30, 45 minutes. I didn't ask for extra money. Then I met with another person, and her website clearly said, you can book an hour, but if it goes into an hour and a half, please pay the difference. And I thought, wow, I've never been aware of this kind of pricing structure before. Doesn't feel good to me, but okay, that's what they're asking for. I'll honor it. And I thought, I'm going to modify what I offer to people in light of what I've experienced. And so I understand that there may be people who would like to work with me that maybe can't afford a 1 hour reading. And so what I've decided to do is to offer 3 different reading options, each at its own price point. So now I'll offer a 30-minute reading for $108. You can do the 1 hour reading with me at $180, which was basically my price point. And if you want to do a 90-minute reading with me, it'll be $261. And that way, there's different price points to hopefully meet people at where they are at any time in their own financial journey. Know that it is a fixed price. If you book a 30-minute reading with me and it goes into 45 minutes or an hour, I'm not going to ask you to send me an extra $90. Okay, I'm just not. So I tried to take my own experience and how I felt about it to evolve my offerings. Because before I only offered really the 1 hour reading. I played around with longer readings. I find that most people, because the intensity of what I have to share is so extreme that they can't do 2 hour readings. They hit the wall and they go like the deer in the headlight thing. But other people that have been working with me for a while, they can take in a 90-minute reading. And if at any time you're feeling like, whoa, this is too much for me, I feel like I'm being waterboarded, we can take a pause. We can take a 5-minute pause, 10-minute pause, whatever you need, come back. It's not eating into your time, right? So I want to be really clear and transparent about what you're receiving, what I'm offering, what you're paying for, without feeling like after the fact you're being asked for more money. I'm sorry. It just didn't feel good to me. And I still am not aligned with that policy, but everybody does their own thing, whatever's good for them. I do have 2 ways in which you can make your payments to me, which are always prepaid before I put together your slides for your meeting. I accept payments through Venmo and I accept payment through Cash App. So anytime you'd like to schedule a meeting with me, you can just email me. I'll have my email address on the last slide. I did mention that I've got resources for you. And let me share them with you here. These are resources that are on my YouTube channel and on other YouTube channel. First of all, my YouTube channel is at the Roseville Mystery School. So youtube.com/@the-Roseville-Mystery-School. I have about a dozen playlists. The reason I've highlighted this one is because in the second update, I talked about the Galactic New Earth Project and how in the beginning of the Galactic New Earth Project, we were downloading rose gold, Sophia Christ light codes into the Venus temples to activate them. All of those videos you can find on my Galactic New Earth Project playlist. Let me remind you, my work transpires through the eternal now space. So even though on a linear timeline, it may be 3, 5, however many years later, when you engage these activations, you are with us. And in fact, I have called you in already in those activations, knowing that you would be present sometime down the linear line. And so these are going to be very, very potent for you. If you want to engage through a reading with me, how you were being evolved at that time, again, you can do that. It will be just as potent. You just need to let me know. I'd like to do these Sophia Christ light code activations through the Venus temples with you, and we can set each one of those up. And, whether you want a 30-minute, hour and a half, it's up to you, whatever you can afford. So know that you can go back. They're there. You can re-engage them. I've been talking about the sacred flames, specifically the name of my goddess temple, the golden ray flame, which is associated with the second ray, that flame of illumination and wisdom. On the Lemurian Connection web channel, YouTube channel, at Lemurian Connection, they have got videos where you can engage each of the temples that hold those sacred flames and receive attunements through those videos. I encourage you to do it. It's a really great way to start working personally with those flames. Also, the quotes that I shared with you earlier from Master Katumi and Master Jesus regarding the Christ and the Holy Spirit, you can find them on the YouTube channel related to I Am Spiritual Books, which is called at I Am That I Am Peace. There is another YouTube channel called at I Am That I Am. That's not the YouTube channel. You want to make sure that you go to the one that says I Am That I Am Peace. Okay. So I want to thank you so much for staying with me through this third update to see how the Rosewell Mystery School has been evolved over the past several months and continues to be evolved. And I look forward to working with you one-on-one, should you so be called to. I really want you to understand how what the work that I am doing personally is not only in support of each of you individually, but on a planetary, global level for humanity. So if there's any event going on that you become aware of and you would like to see how it is personally evolving you, feel free to contact me. We can dive into it. I will tell you that for myself, I look at each of these events for myself. So for instance, the events that are happening yesterday, today, and tomorrow with the sun squaring Saturnia, squaring Neptune, coming into conjunction with Jupiter. I've looked at those. I'm being evolved from my 12th solar house to my 9th solar house. That tells me a lot in terms of what I am learning from who I am as a divine being to have those breakthroughs in consciousness. Looking at these events personally for yourself is a game changer. Trust me. And it often validates exactly what you're experiencing and what's showing up in your external reality. It gives you a whole new level of clarity and understanding about your experience. So I thank you again. I don't know when I'm going to put out another video, but until such time, I am sending you all of my love, heart to heart, and I hope to hear from you soon. You can reach me through this email address, also my personal email address, which is Sophia Mona Lisa. Make sure you spell it with an F. It's all one word. The number 79@gmail.com. So I didn't realize I didn't have that on this page. Sophia Mona Lisa 79@gmail.com. Thank you, beloveds. Take good care.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of